Let me say something that might genuinely change the way you think about retirement. Not just the math of it, but the feeling of it. The lived reality of waking up every morning knowing your money is working the way you need it to work. We spend so much time in the retirement conversation arguing about a single number. Is it 4%? Is it 5%? Could you push it to 6% and still be okay? Financial media loves this debate because it's clean, it's simple, and it fits neatly into a headline. But here's what I've come to believe after years of thinking deeply about how real people actually live in retirement. That single number obsession is not just incomplete, it can be genuinely harmful. Because Morningstar just released one of the most thorough, most human, most genuinely useful studies I've seen in a long time. They didn't test one withdrawal strategy. They didn't test 2 or 3. They tested 8 different systems, each one stress-tested across the same 30-year retirement horizon, the same portfolio assumptions, the same market simulations, all targeting a 90% success rate. And after all of that rigorous, exhaustive analysis, here is what they concluded. There is no best withdrawal strategy. There are only strategies that fit different people. Read that again, slowly. Let it settle. Because what Morningstar is really saying, what I believe with everything in me, is that retirement is not a math problem with one right answer. It is a deeply personal, deeply human journey. And so much of whether your retirement actually works comes down not to your spreadsheet, but to your behavior, your psychology, your values, and the way you genuinely live your life day to day. So let's go beyond the math today. Let's walk through all 8 strategies, talk honestly about what you gain and what you give up with each one, and then I'll walk you through a decision tree to help you figure out which approach actually fits you. Strategy 1, fixed real withdrawal, the classic paycheck. This is where we start, and it's where Morningstar starts too, because it's the baseline, the gold standard of retirement income simplicity. Here's how it works. You choose a starting withdrawal amount, say 3.9% of $1 million portfolio, which gives you $39,000 in year 1. Then, every single year, you increase that amount by the rate of inflation. Full stop. That's the whole strategy. By year 2, you're pulling roughly $40,000. By year 10, you're at around $49,000. By year 20, you're approaching $63,000. And here's the beautiful, almost meditative part of this approach. It doesn't matter what the market did. It doesn't matter if your portfolio dropped 20% or surged 25%. Your paycheck simply keeps pace with inflation, year after year, like clockwork. I want you to really sit with why people love this. It feels like a salary. It feels like someone is depositing money into your account every month, predictable and reliable, the way your working paycheck used to feel. There are no agonizing decisions during market downturns. There's no sitting at the kitchen table at midnight wondering whether you should cut back. The plan is the plan, and the plan doesn't blink. But here is the cost, and I want to be honest with you about this because I think it matters enormously. This strategy gives you the lowest starting withdrawal rate of all 8 methods. It completely ignores how your portfolio is actually performing. If markets boom, you don't get a raise. If markets struggle early in your retirement, which is one of the most dangerous scenarios you can face, this plan can become genuinely fragile. And perhaps most heartbreaking of all, Morningstar's research consistently shows that the fixed real withdrawal strategy is the one most likely to leave retirees sitting on a mountain of unspent money at the end of their lives. Not because they didn't have enough, but because the strategy never gave them permission to spend more. This approach is beautiful for people who value stability above all else, who have strong income floors like a generous Social Security benefit or a pension, and who find genuine peace in predictability. If market volatility makes your stomach turn, this strategy can feel like a warm, steady hand on your shoulder. Strategy 2, skip inflation after a loss. Tiny adjustment, real protection. This one starts exactly the same as the fixed real withdrawal. You take your steady, inflation-adjusted paycheck every year, with one small but meaningful twist. If your portfolio experiences a down year, the following year you simply skip your inflation adjustment. You don't cut your spending. You just don't give yourself a raise. That sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? But here's why it matters more than it seems. Imagine you're taking $40,000 from your portfolio in year 2, and then the market drops 15%. Under a pure fixed real strategy, you'd still give yourself an inflation increase in year 3. Under this approach, you stay at $40,000. No raise this year. Your portfolio gets a chance to breathe, to recover, without you asking it to work even harder during its most vulnerable moment. What Morningstar found is remarkable. That tiny, almost invisible adjustment meaningfully improves portfolio durability, especially during the dangerous early years of retirement when sequence of returns risk is at its peak. Skipping a raise is psychologically so much easier than cutting your spending. Most retirees barely notice the difference in any given year. Here's the catch, though. Every skipped inflation increase is permanent. Your spending path never fully catches up. Over a 20 or 30-year retirement, those small missed raises can quietly compound into meaningfully lower lifetime spending. You're protecting the portfolio, not maximizing your life. But for many people, especially those who simply want their money to last and don't need to squeeze every dollar out of it, that trade-off is completely worth it. Strategy 3, the RMD Method, math so clean it almost feels like cheating. The required minimum distribution approach is elegant in its logic. Each year, you take your current portfolio balance and divide it by your remaining life expectancy. That's your withdrawal. As you age, the divisor gets smaller, the percentage gets larger, and you're naturally spending more of what's left. On a $1 million portfolio at age 67, with roughly a 30-year life expectancy, that's about $33,000 in year 1. If the market is kind and your portfolio grows to $1.15 million, your withdrawal climbs to nearly $40,000, a 20% raise with no decision required. If markets are cruel and your portfolio drops to $850,000, your withdrawal falls to about $29,000, a meaningful pay cut that arrives whether you're ready for it or not. From a purely mathematical standpoint, this strategy is almost impossible to beat. The portfolio literally cannot hit zero prematurely because you're always withdrawing a percentage of what remains. Spending automatically adjusts to reality. And Morningstar found that this approach supports some of the highest levels of lifetime spending of any strategy tested. But the trade-off is entirely behavioral, and I don't want to minimize that. The income swings can be dramatic. There is no inflation targeting. Budgeting becomes genuinely difficult. Lifestyle planning becomes harder. This strategy doesn't care about your rent or your health insurance premiums or what groceries cost this year. It cares about one thing only, the current value of your portfolio. For some people, that freedom is exhilarating. For others, it is deeply, viscerally uncomfortable. This strategy shines brightest when you have strong income floors, when Social Security or a pension covers your essential expenses, and your portfolio is truly just the icing on the cake of your retirement life. Strategy 4, Guardrails, cruise control for your retirement. The guardrail strategy, sometimes called the Guyton-Klinger method, is one of my personal favorites to talk about because it solves a problem that I think quietly torments so many retirees. When do I adjust my spending, and by how much? You start with a normal withdrawal rate. Then, rather than blindly adjusting for inflation every year, the system checks in. If your withdrawal rate has drifted dangerously high relative to your portfolio, say from 4% to 6.1% after a market drop, the guardrail triggers a spending cut, typically around 10%. If your withdrawal rate has fallen very low relative to your portfolio, say from 4% down to 3% after a strong market run, the guardrail triggers a raise, also typically around 10%. Think of it as a thermostat for your retirement income. It's self-regulating. It keeps you in a reasonable range without asking you to make agonizing decisions in the heat of the moment. Morningstar found that guardrails allow retirees to start retirement with a meaningfully higher withdrawal rate than the fixed Real method, without meaningfully increasing their risk of running out of money. That is a powerful finding. And unlike the RMD method, guardrails still leave larger balances behind and tend to feel more emotionally stable. The trade-off is that this is not a set-it-and-forget-it plan. Your income will change. Your budget needs flexibility. You have to be emotionally prepared to accept both the raises and the cuts. But for the retiree who says, I want to spend confidently without being reckless, guardrails might be exactly what you've been looking for. Strategy 5, actual spending decline, working with human nature, not against it. Here's something beautiful about this strategy. It's built on truth. Real retirees don't actually spend the same amount every year for 30 years. They spend more in the early active years. They travel, they pursue hobbies, they go to dinners and concerts and visit grandchildren across the country. Then, gradually, spending softens, the pace slows, life becomes quieter, and in the very late years, healthcare costs may tick back up, but typically only modestly. The actual spending decline strategy simply builds this reality into the plan from day one. Rather than forcing an inflation increase every year, spending is assumed to naturally decline in real terms by about 2% annually. On a $1 million portfolio with a 4% starting withdrawal, that means $40,000 in year 1. By year 5, around $36,000. By year 10, about $32,500. By year 20, closer to $26,500. That's from the portfolio. Remember, most retirees also have Social Security layered underneath. The decline is gradual, and for most people, it already reflects how their life actually unfolds. Morningstar's research shows this strategy carries some of the lowest failure risk of any method tested, precisely because it doesn't fight human nature, it flows with it. The honest trade-off is that you are not maximizing lifetime spending. You are not squeezing every dollar out of your portfolio. You are choosing peace of mind over optimization. And for a great many retirees, particularly those who genuinely expect their pace of life to slow, that is not a sacrifice. It's a relief. Strategy 6, constant percentage, bulletproof math, wild ride. Every year you withdraw the same fixed percentage from your portfolio, say 5%. The percentage never changes. The dollar amount absolutely does. Strong market year, your $1 million grows to $1.3 million and you pull $65,000, a $15,000 raise that arrives automatically. Brutal market year, your portfolio drops to $700,000 and you pull $35,000, a $15,000 pay cut just as automatic and just as sudden. From a technical standpoint, this is the closest thing to a mathematically perfect strategy. You literally cannot run out of money. The portfolio is permanently self-correcting. Morningstar found this approach supports some of the highest safe starting withdrawal rates precisely because overspending in a poor market is structurally impossible. But I want to be honest with you about the emotional reality of living inside this strategy. It doesn't care what your rent is. It doesn't care what your prescriptions cost. It doesn't know that inflation just ran at 7% and your grocery bill is unrecognizable. It knows only one thing: what your portfolio is worth today. For retirees who have strong income floors already covering their essential expenses, this strategy can feel genuinely liberating. Your portfolio becomes a lifestyle enhancer, not a lifeline. Volatility becomes tolerable when your bills are already covered. Strategy 7, the Endowment Method. Think like a university. This strategy borrows directly from how the largest, most sophisticated endowments in the world, think Harvard, Yale, the great foundations, fund their annual spending. Instead of withdrawing a percentage of this year's portfolio value, you withdraw a percentage of the portfolio's average value over the past 10 years. The effect is a profound smoothing of market noise. A single spectacular market year doesn't inflate your lifestyle dangerously. A single brutal year doesn't force immediate, sharp cuts. Your spending adjusts slowly, deliberately, rationally, the way a great institution moves, not the way a frightened individual reacts. Morningstar found this approach supports some of the highest safe starting withdrawal rates while meaningfully reducing income volatility. The trade-off is complexity. You need to track historical portfolio values, and the system isn't intuitive without some guidance. But for analytically minded retirees who think in decades rather than quarters, this strategy offers something rare and genuinely valuable, discipline that feels almost effortless. Strategy 8, the Vanguard floor and ceiling model, boundaries that set you free. This strategy is essentially a more refined, more behaviorally sophisticated version of the guardrail approach. Each year, your spending can increase by no more than a set ceiling, say 5%, and it can decrease by no more than a set floor, say 2.5%. You respond to markets, but only within boundaries you've established in advance. Strong market year, you get a measured, reasonable raise, not a lifestyle leap you'll later regret. Difficult market year, you absorb a small, controlled adjustment, not a panic-level belt-tightening that disrupts everything. Vanguard designed this system around two uncomfortable truths they've observed in real retiree behavior. First, people hate big spending cuts with a passion that is almost physical. Second, people are dangerously tempted to dramatically increase their lifestyle when markets surge, and they often deeply regret it later. This model creates a system that responds to reality, respects inflation, and prevents emotional overreaction in either direction. Morningstar highlights this as one of the most behaviorally realistic strategies of all 8, one that real people can actually live with, month after month, market cycle after market cycle. After walking through all 8 of these approaches, I want to leave you with the clearest, most practical gift I can offer: a simple framework for choosing. Start here. Do you need predictable monthly income? If yes, look seriously at fixed real withdrawal, skip inflation after a loss, or actual spending decline. These strategies are built for the retiree who needs to know with certainty what's coming in every month. If you're comfortable adjusting your spending year to year, explore Guardrails or the Vanguard floor and ceiling model. If you're very comfortable with variability, especially if you have strong income floors covering your essentials, the RMD method, constant percentage, or the endowment approach may unlock significantly higher lifetime spending for you. Ask yourself this too: do you want to maximize what you spend in your lifetime, or do you want to leave something meaningful behind? If your goal is to spend it, to use this money you've worked so hard to accumulate, look at RMD, constant percentage, or Guardrails. If your goal is to preserve, to feel safe, to leave a legacy, fixed, real, or actual spending decline will serve you better. And perhaps most importantly of all, do you have strong income floors? Social Security, a pension, guaranteed income of any kind. The stronger your floor, the more volatility your portfolio can afford to show, because volatility stops being existential when your essential needs are already covered. Morningstar's most important finding isn't which strategy mathematically wins. It's this: Every increase in lifetime income requires accepting more variability. Every increase in stability costs you lifetime spending. There is no free lunch and there is no perfect system. What there is, and this is what I want you to hold on to, is a strategy that fits your life, your values, your temperament, and your actual needs. A technically perfect withdrawal plan that you abandon in the middle of a market crash is worth absolutely nothing. A simpler, more conservative plan that you stick with through every good year and every terrifying year, that plan is worth everything. Retirement planning is not about finding the highest number you can defensively withdraw. It's about finding the strategy you can live inside with confidence and with grace for the next 30 years. So tell me, which of these 8 strategies resonated with you? Did any of them surprise you? I genuinely love to know where you landed. Drop it in the comments below. And if someone in your life is wrestling with these questions, a spouse, a parent, a friend standing at the edge of retirement and not quite sure which direction to step, please share this with them, because this conversation matters. It matters more than any single number ever could.